Hi, pretty babes and handsome hotties. Welcome back to Tea and Glitter, the podcast. If this is your first time here, hi, I'm Evelina, better known as Ivy of the Les Vixens. I'm a lesbian burlesque performer and producer, a sapphic safe space creator, and a troublemaker. Just kidding, but I am all about doing my best to inspire self-love and gay pride, which some people might think is troublemaking, because the more we queer kittens move in our power, the more scared the bigots become. And on this podcast, I spill the tea and give you all that gay girl glitter on how to live your best life, a life that would make the homophobes shake in their little bootsies. Along the way, I overshare about my own life, or maybe not, I don't know, maybe I can share more? You let me know. You let me know if you want to know more about me personally and like what my life is all about, what's going on with me. Thought about sharing some things, chickened out, so we're going to move on with this episode. And even though I chickened out, what I'm going to talk about today, actually, I had a whole other episode planned, and then I was like, no, I'm feeling like there needs to be something else that I want to talk about. And I took a little walk, and I just let the universe and then my muses like talk to me, and I was thinking about being a lesbian, and then it just came to me. And so I just felt really moved about this topic, and then the episode really came to me pretty quickly and pretty easily, so I know that it is the correct one. And some of you out there, I feel like in my soul, need to hear this today. And I'm about to sound like a gay infomercial, but do you have someone in your life or people in your life who don't accept you? People you feel like you can't be yourself around, that you can't share about your love life or your identity or your community? People who make you feel badly, even shameful, or people who just don't get it? Do you have anyone in your life that you feel like you can't be open with, that you have to hide parts of yourself from? Do you have someone in your life who you know feels some type of way about you being gay, and even if it's not like overtly homophobic? Do you have people in your life who make the energy like weird and uncomfy when you bring up anything remotely gay? Do you have people in your life who you just know you can't keep in your life anymore because your mental health is just too negatively affected by them? I feel like as queer people, we typically always have people like this in our lives. Like, it's just crazy to me to think that like all of us collectively share this experience, having to navigate relationships with people who in some way or another don't accept us. From the extreme, like completely homophobic parents, to maybe people who are just like low-key insensitive and who make like careless remarks. You know, I feel like there's quite a spectrum and varying levels of this kind of acceptance versus unacceptance. And like the way those things can come up in your life or manifest, or the dynamics in the relationship and like how they kind of present, and where you just feel the energy, or where it's like so bad that you know you can't ever come out of the closet to that person. I mean, there are 1,000 ways that these kinds of things can come up and manifest in our lives and manifest with our relationships with people. And then we also react and respond to that lack of acceptance in a variety of ways. From internalizing more shame and hatred toward ourselves, to being forced to go no contact with family members, and like so much more. So today I wanted to talk with you guys how to navigate these kinds of relationships in your life, because chances are that you have them happening right now in your life, or you have had them, or you will have them based on the fact that you're a queer person. And also I want to talk about kind of how to navigate your own feelings about these relationships, how you have to kind of grieve them and navigate them differently and make really hard choices. And I also want to really try to get you to focus on self-care and self-love in these moments. Like, we already face a world that doesn't accept us in so many ways, and it's already so hard to accept ourselves, even without all the rest of this mess. And it's really unfair that queer people have to have so much more fortitude and strength just to exist. And like, I know that trials and tribulations like really build character, and I know we're going to face challenges in life, but like, man, I'm good. My character's pretty strong. I'm kind of over these challenges and building this inner strength and fortitude, but like, I think we're still kind of in this space, even though it's 2024. And while I do still think it's unfair that we do have to dig deep and find this fortitude and strength, I also think that what we are doing right now on this podcast in general is, am I gonna cry already? Jesus. It's fine. I think we're breaking generational issues here by healing ourselves, even if that means that we have to be a little stronger and digging a little deeper and leaning harder into our communities. I've been listening to a neuroscientist talk about the brain and trauma and epigenetics. And for those of you who aren't familiar with epigenetics, it's basically the study of how your behaviors and environments can cause changes that affect the way your genes work, Like your environment can actually affect your DNA. And of course, we know that our genes get passed down to future generations, and so do those traumas, and so do those unhealed wounds. So literally, biologically, we can change the world if we heal ourselves now. We're like little gay pioneers, and even though it often feels like the Oregon Trail and we're just trying not to die of dysentery, and it's super unfair that we are the ones who have to be doing this work, it's still pretty amazing to think that the work that I am doing and the work that you are doing can help other people and future generations. And if it's one thing I want to do, it's make the world a better and more gay place. But it's still not fair. Not fair that we have to have so much fortitude in order to survive and thrive. But that is where we are currently in history. And we may wish that we were more progressed. Like, come on, it's 2024. Where are my flying cars and equality, right? But facing the reality of where we are at is a crucial and critical. The redundancy is shocking today, but crucial and critical. I'm going to go for it. Crucial and critical step in creating more ease and peace in our lives. It's crucial to accept the reality in which we live so that we can work within that without exhausting ourselves by pushing up against things that are not changing or that aren't changing fast enough. I think for me, a lot of my own self-acceptance and a lot of the peace that I have found in my own life comes from having more acceptance of the way the world is and the way people are, and instead focusing on my own lane and my own path, like living out loud and authentically without getting distracted by people who suck. So let me first start by getting some things out of the way about the way the world is and the way people are, and let's get some perspective, because perspective is also crucial and critical. Everyone has their own histories, their own traumas, their own worldviews, their own beliefs, and we cannot expect everyone in our lives to have had absolutely no negative indoctrination about the LGBTQ plus community. Like, it's completely unreasonable to expect every single parent to jump for joy when their kid comes out, right? Or even to expect them to have no response, a neutral response. And we can't expect every single person in our lives and to have not internalized some homophobia or to be very, very deep inside the closet themselves, because like, you don't know. I have a whole episode on internalized homophobia and how it manifests itself in straight people and even in gay people. So if you're interested in doing a little more explanation or a little more exploration on that subject, I have a whole episode on it, so go listen to that. But what I'm trying to say here is that we have to understand from the get-go that not everyone is going to understand you, accept you, and get it right in the way that we would hope. And while that's unfair and stupid, and I hate it, I also accept it. And starting there makes it hurt a lot less. Like, trust me on this. Trying to find a little more acceptance of the people around you and a little more understanding will help your journey be filled with less suffering. Like, if we can figure out how to accept some of the realities, I truly do believe that we suffer less. Pain is going to happen, but the degree to which we are going to suffer, I think in many ways is actually within our control. It's like the prayer that they say in AA meetings, the serenity prayer, God or whatever higher power you believe in, the universe, whatever, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. And that prayer, while it may be a prayer and like that might not be your vibe, it's not really my vibe. It's more like a mantra, I feel, for me personally, has helped so much, because there is so much wisdom in knowing the difference and not exhausting yourself trying to change things that you absolutely cannot. There's a lot in life that we can't change, but there are ways to navigate them so that they become less painful to us, and in fact might create some space for change down the line. So keep that in mind, even if you wish your parents were more accepting, or that other people in your life didn't behave the way that they do. Sometimes accepting something as it is right now in this moment can help you figure out how to move forward in reality. I think that goes for a lot in life. I'm currently having to accept some things in my own reality. But yeah, especially when it comes to these types of relationships in your life because you are a queer person. Also, being a queer person, like this is a point that I think some of us need to hear. Actually, I think everything I say you need to hear. That's why I have a podcast. Being a queer person and in queer community, it can be a vastly different experience from the straight world, from the heterosexual world. Queer culture is just that. It is a culture with a lot of variation and nuance like under that rainbow umbrella, if you will. So like I don't expect the average straight person to know who Chapel Rowan is or why she matters so much, or to understand the nuances of being gay, or to really understand our experiences. You know, I can't expect them to understand every single gender or sexual identity, or even like every single gender or sexual identity. You know, personally, I certainly am not a big fan of heterosexuality. I can't expect every person in my life to poof, magically no longer have the worldviews and the indoctrination that they grew up with simply because I am a lady-loving lady who happens to love being a lady-loving lady. But I can expect and require respect and human decency. And this is something we'll talk about in a bit, about people not respecting your relationship, your identity, your pronouns, whatever. But yeah, I have certain standards and expectations for people in my life, even if at the same time I can also give them grace for their worldviews, for what they've grown up with, etc. I have certain standards and expectations for people who get to stay in my life. And along with like respect and basic human decency, I would even prefer a neutral response to being gay from people. Like, it's like how I feel about straight people, right? Like, I have no opinion on straight people, on their lives, on who they date, on what they wear. And it's not like I accept them or don't. Like, they are, I am, it is what it is. Or I guess rather, I mean, I do have a lot of opinions on straight people and straight culture, but they're not about whether or not these people are valid or not. We have a Fenton, ladies and gentlemen. Like, you get what I'm saying? Like, we can all have opinions. You know, I do have opinions on men and straight girls and some of their behaviors and some of the fashion choices, to be honest. But what I don't have is a judgment on their right to live, how they want to live and be who they are, right? Are you picking up what I'm putting down? Like, we can all think what we want to think, but for some reason, straight people, straight society, have this ridiculous belief that they get to accept us or not. The dum-dums, like as if it's their place to decree whether or not our existence is valid. As if our quote-unquote lifestyles somehow involve them or somehow threaten them. I mean, maybe this is a thought, maybe men are terrified that no women will want to date them once the rest of women realize that being with another woman is way better. But like, then do better, men. I don't know what to tell you. That could be why they're so scared of us. But anyway, it's like such a joke, the whole like lifestyle thing, you know, like, oh, I don't agree with your lifestyle. Like my lifestyle, like I'm literally at my house, tending to my plants, hanging with my cats, drinking some green tea, not drinking, not smoking, not doing drugs, writing in my journal, going to therapy, working to make my community safer. Like that lifestyle, like that's the one that you're so like terrified of or you think is so morally wrong. Just because I happen to be emotionally, romantically, sexually, physically attracted to women and utterly repulsed by men? Like, come on now. That seems like a pretty healthy lifestyle to me. But the concepts, I'm fighting cat fur floating everywhere. I'm allergic to cats. If one of these gets in my eye, it's all over, folks. It's all over. The concepts of acceptance and tolerance are actually quite enraging to me. Like, why do y'all have so many opinions on my life, on the validity of my love, on what I wear, on who I date? Like, be so for real and get out of here with all that nonsense. But again, breathe in, breathe out. I, in all my wisdom and oracle-like mastery of the cosmos, understand the world in which we live and can see why things are the way they are, where that comes from, and why this is still such an issue in our lives. I get the reality. I can accept the reality. Breathe in, breathe out. Let me accept the things I cannot change. But I do think many cultures struggle to accept other cultures that are different than theirs. And remember, I said queer culture, straight culture, these are cultures. These are entirely different cultures. And especially when one culture has been taught its entire life that they are morally superior, that they are superior in every way, you know, and then you add in a religion that condemns other cultures, and boy howdy, does it get messy. And you kind of see why this is still an issue in our lives and like where this is all coming from, right? I do think we are well on our way to it becoming a non-issue. You know, I think we are progressing pretty dang quickly, which is wonderful. But the truth is, it is still a thing, having to beg, fight, and steal for the scraps from society, and by which I mean acceptance from society and the people in our lives. I do see big changes happening over the last few years, and more people are finding greater acceptance in society, from the people in their lives, within their own selves, but it is still a thing. For example, just last month, this little cutie was at a show that I was performing at, and my gaydar went off when I saw her, right? But she told me, like slightly in a panic, that her mom doesn't know and isn't okay with the whole gay thing because I was like chit-chatting with her parents. So she wanted to kind of like forewarn me to not like implode her life and accidentally out her, which I would never do. But I understood the panic, right? She told me straight up, her mom is not okay with gays. And it made me realize that once again, how much this is still a part of a queer experience and still very much relevant in our lives. It's already so confusing being a queer person, right? And there's already so much to figure out for ourselves as we're going along this journey. And facing these varying levels of acceptance from people who are important to us in our lives just adds like so much more pain and strife to the mix. It's like adding a little spice that does not taste good, like could do without that. Thank you so much. In a perfect world, as we would be discovering our most authentic selves, we would be surrounded by love and support and encouragement and enthusiasm, safety and softness and resources and representation, and the conviction that we are not abnormal or wrong or dirty or anything like that, but just humans having a human experience. A very fun, colorful, and sexy one, but still just a human experience. But alas, as I have said many times so far in this podcast, that's not the world in which we live at the moment. And everyone around us has had a lifetime of their own internalized beliefs and feelings within a society that has, for decades, had a big old problem with LGBTQ plus people. Unfortunately, being gay is a hot topic for a lot of people, which is just so weird and cringe to me. Like, grow up. Grow up, okay? They're gay people. Get over it, right? Like, why such a focus on the last century of vilifying queer people? It's beyond me. I think it has something to do with white supremacy, but that is a conversation for another day. Anyway, as I was saying, I don't expect straight people to understand me, to understand my culture. Like, it would be completely unreasonable for me to expect hetero people to understand the pure joy and ecstasy of sapphic love. Like, I wouldn't expect them to understand how exciting it is when there's a queer character in a movie or on a TV show, or how comforting it is to see queer elders living their best lives. But to be seen and loved and accepted are some of the most powerful things for us little humans. And that's why I wanted to discuss this today. Because what's happening for a lot of us is that we're not just not being seen, loved, and understood, but we are actively being made to feel that we are dirty, shameful, wrong, and that we need to change. And I can't abide that. I can't. I refuse to sit here and let perfectly innocent, wonderful people be condemned for being who they are. Being gay is not a crime. It's not something to feel shameful about. Same with being trans or non-binary. And oftentimes when we are faced with this lack of acceptance from others, we harm ourselves. We turn their projections onto ourselves and we dim our lights. We shrink ourselves. We hide parts of ourselves. Sometimes we even keep ourselves in the closet, or we shove ourselves back in there when we're around certain people. Sometimes we actually physically hurt ourselves because we feel like we deserve it. You know, we might even dress differently than we do in our day-to-day when we're around certain people, certain family members, or we might keep our relationships hidden, relationships that are very, very important to us, our girlfriends, our boyfriends, and these huge parts of our lives completely closed off. And so much of that is painful and it's heartbreaking, and it can create so much more shame within ourselves that it takes forever to get out from underneath it. I have a lot of privilege because I don't look stereotypically gay. I have straight passing privilege, so I can like go out into the world and I don't face the same amount of like overt hate from society the way like my more masc presenting lesbian counterparts would, or my trans babes, or my non-binary babes. And I do know that in this day and age, cisgender gay guys and cisgender gay girls are much more accepted in general society than trans people and non-binary people are. And while we are part of the same community, trans people and non-binary people have a lot more going against them politically in this current climate than just your boring old gay girl or gay guy. But that doesn't discredit the experiences of anyone here, okay? There's no hierarchy of pain on this podcast, and I will not be speculating on who has it worse. But I will acknowledge for myself where I do experience privilege and how that can play into my personal experiences. Like, for example, I'm femme. I don't have any tattoos. I don't have any piercings. I've never dyed my hair. So, as the man at the bank told me the other day, I look like a good Christian girl, which means that when I'm around people or family or whatever who expect women to dress in a feminine way, to look feminine, I don't have to change anything about my presentation. But that doesn't mean that I haven't had to lose people in my life to live authentically and that I haven't experienced suffering. So let me share some of my own experiences with acceptance. Fenton is chowing down, so if you hear little crunches, that's him being adorable, having a little midnight snack because it is late at night when I am filming these. Anyway, for me, coming out was an easy experience for the most part. It was super easy for me to accept myself wholeheartedly. Like I started dating girls. It all made sense. Sex was no longer this terrifying thing that I never wanted to participate in. I dated boys in high school, but I refused to have sex with them. Falling in love with girls was natural and easy and powerful, and I never questioned myself. I will say that I did think I was bisexual when I first started dating girls, but then quickly realized that I would never in a million years date a boy again, and that dating boys in the first place was comp-het, and that I was in fact not bisexual, but a huge lesbian. And I don't know if I personally just didn't have a lot of internalized homophobia, or if everything was just so incredibly crystal clear for me in my heart and my body, but I did not struggle internally with being gay. Like I didn't have any issues. I was like, nope, it's great. You know, I didn't have any religious hangups. I didn't have any religious trauma associated with being gay. Like I didn't have anything. Like it was like coming home for me, right? Like it all just felt so natural and so great. And so like I didn't experience any shame, none of that. It was all just like, yep, this is great. I love this. You know, I felt amazed and I felt amazing and I felt aligned and I felt happy, and I still do. I felt so happy to be a part of the LGBTQ plus community. I felt so happy that I got to kiss girls and hold their hand and have sex with girls and romance the fuck out of girls. You know, it felt so, so, so good. Even when said girls destroyed my heart. Unrelated, but I was looking through my notes on my phone. You know how girls, we've got the most random things in the little notes app on your phone. I came across this and I thought it was just hilarious. I would rather go through the worst lesbian heartache 1,000 times over than date a man. So even when it hurts, I'm still coming out on top. Anyway, yeah, so being a lesbian always made total sense to me, and I accepted it and myself wholeheartedly right from the get-go. And accepting myself fully made it a lot easier to deal with people in my life who didn't accept me, or rather to even accept that some people would no longer be in my life in the ways that I wanted them to be, and to know that nothing I could do could change their minds, because I knew in my heart that being a lesbian is not immoral. It's nothing to feel shame about. It's not dirty. It's not wrong. And it's certainly not something I should try to change. I knew and accepted and loved that part of myself. And if someone else didn't, well, that was on them. So here are some ways in my own life that I have had to navigate unaccepting people in my life. Gosh, let's see. The first person who really stands out in my heart is my former best friend, Jill. We were best friends from elementary school all the way through high school. Jill was my ride or die, my soul sister, my best friend in the whole wide world, and a huge part of the fabric of who I am as a person. She was actually the first person that I came out to, which saying that like makes my eyes sting. Whew. Anyway, at first she was kind of okay with the gay thing, right? You know, sort of. Like there were some complicated feelings, but looking back now, I know that's because she herself was queer, but so far in the closet, so far in the closet. She was in Narnia. She was like Mr. Tumnus and her hanging out, right? And so far from ever being able to admit it to herself. I have empathy for her journey, which is something that I've been trying to get you guys to see, is like you can have grace and empathy for the people in your lives, because having that kind of empathy, knowing even at the time that like that there were some religious things there were some complications there, like it gave me a little bit more empathy because I knew her family was super religious. So I knowing that that's where she came from, like I had a little bit more empathy for her lack of acceptance of me. She'd even like met my first girlfriend, and as I said, was like mostly chill at first. Even if she was a little chilly toward my first girlfriend, you know, I think Jill probably had feelings for me, but again, way out in Narnia, so could not even acknowledge that any of that was even a remote possibility. But then after high school, Jill moved to Tennessee to go to a Christian college, because as I said, her family is very religious. She had a super Christian family, and within a few weeks of Jill being in Tennessee at this Christian college, I received an email, not a phone call, not a text, a very impersonal email, the most heartbreaking email I have ever received, telling me that she did not condone my quote unquote lifestyle, that she would pray for me and Brittany, my first girlfriend, and that to consider this the end of our friendship and to never contact her again. And this was my first big casualty in my journey, and it still hurts, or rather, like I hurt for those two girls. I hurt for Jill and I hurt for me at the time. And later, years later, we did reconnect and she did come out and she had a girlfriend. And this is just one of those things, like I talked about earlier, sometimes it's a give it time and see. And this was one of those. Obviously, our friendship was not anything like the best friendship that it was growing up. But it was nice to see that she was finally getting to live her own truth. My next loss in the game of living authentically in a world that has not caught up yet is my family on my dad's side. My dad's entire family lives in Oklahoma. My cousins, who I was super close with growing up, my aunt, my uncles, my grandma, my granddad, like everybody lives in Oklahoma. I love them so much, and I spent every summer of my life growing up on that farm with my grandparents. The closest town to the farm was Cheyenne, Oklahoma, and they had like a population like smaller than my high school. Like my brother and I got on the front page of the newspaper every time we'd come visit. It was like this little town, and we went to church 3 times a week, twice on Sunday, once on Wednesday. So if you can imagine some of the most quintessential small town Christian people, like the biggest hearts, the kindest people, hardworking people, and yet at the same time, small town, small Christian minds, small-minded Christians, small town, small-minded Christians. You get it. You get it. You get it. You guys are getting it. We've hung out long enough that you get it. But like for them, gay is the sin, like the sin TM, right? Like trademark the sin, like the big one, and their belief that that gay people burn in hell is so deep and so strong within them. Not that they think that gay people deserve to burn in hell, but they just think that gay is a choice and that people who choose to be gay will burn in hell because it's a sin. Like you guys, you're aware of these Christian beliefs, like you get it. And it's not that they believe that gay people deserve bad things to happen, but they're just like, man, that Satan, he's out here being all sexy and tempting and like leading them down the path of destruction, of rainbow road. Follow Satan down the rainbow road. Oh Lord. Etc., etc. You get it. So I remember when I was dating my first girlfriend, Brittany, I went to the farm to visit my family. And of course they asked if I had a boyfriend, and I lied and told them yes, and that his name was Brent. Because that was the closest name I could come up to with Brittany on the spot, right? Like, what? Me dating Brent, aka Brittany. I hadn't come out to my dad yet at this point in my journey. My mom, my stepdad, and my brother all knew. But my dad and my stepmom didn't know I was gay. I hadn't come out to them yet, and neither did any of my family in Oklahoma. And I just knew that with my family in Oklahoma, they were from a world in which coming out to them would mean many things, but it would never mean acceptance. So I chose to never come out to that side of my family. And that meant that over time, I did lose touch with a lot of them. And this is something that I find to still be very sad. I later came out to my dad, and if you've listened to my coming out story, you know how that went. It went pretty okay. But we still kept that a secret from my stepmom for a few more years. And my dad and I have talked over time, about whether or not I should come out to that side of my family. And he agreed still to this day that he doesn't think it would be a good idea because of what he knows of their beliefs and how they have handled other people coming out. And that has been hard because like I miss them and I would love to talk to them more, but it just feels weird. I have to hide so much of myself and I can't even talk about my career because my career is like the gayest thing ever. So like all I have to do every time I talk about my career, I just talk about medieval times, like, yep, still the queen at the castle riding a horse like that. Yep. Oh, yep. I'm there. Enough to make a full-time living. Like what? No. And all my cousins are married with kids. Really, one of my cousins married the pastor's son, right? And had a whole gaggle of children. And, so of course they always ask about like, oh, are you married? Are you dating kids? Whatever. I'm like, nope, still no boyfriend, because I don't want to keep talking about Brent. I don't want to live that inauthentically. So I just say, no, boyfriends. I don't know. For me, they live in Oklahoma and I love them dearly, but I've kind of let it go. And it's not that I feel shame about being gay. It's that I know that their beliefs are so strong that it would cause them nothing but pain to think that I am going to hell. They just wouldn't have anything in their belief system for anything different, Maybe one day I'll be able to reconnect with my cousins in like a more real way. And I do have hope for that. But yeah, this is one choice that I made on my journey. It's not the right choice. It's not the wrong choice. It is just the choice that I made. And while it still hurts sometimes to think about that side of the family and how much I miss them, I'm also okay with the choice. But I wanted to reiterate that that particular choice is not because I think that I am somehow wrong or for being gay, that I'm going to hell, that I'm shameful or anything like that. And that made this easier for me to know that being gay itself is not a choice. And yet, if it was, I would choose it every single time. To have that strong of a belief for myself, held just as strongly as their beliefs, I can kind of like, okay, I get it. But I accept myself so wholly as in completely, not as in like holy, like God holy. But I know that it is not me. It is their beliefs that stop us from having the relationship, just like it was Jill's beliefs that stopped us from continuing our friendship. I knew it was her beliefs, her indoctrination, her internalized homophobia. It was not me being a lesbian that ended our friendship. It ended because her internalized homophobia kept her from seeing that being gay ain't no thing, baby. Someone asked me the other day, like, how I have so much confidence. And I think acceptance is such a critical piece to that. I think it's all because of acceptance. Like, I accept that I'm gay. I accept the way I look. I accept that audiences might or might not like the way I look, or might not like the way I'm gay, or people might not like the way I look or the way I'm gay, like the way I'm gay. They might not like the way I'm gay. They might want me to be gay in a different way. But it's pretty much none of my business whether they do or not, right? Like, I can't change these things about myself. This is what I look like. It's how gay I am. It is only my responsibility to live authentically aligned to the best of my ability, to strive to be a good human. And the rest is out of my hands, including how other people react and respond to me. It's none of my business. So I truly believe that one of, if not the biggest key to being able to navigate this world as a queer person with as much equanimity and peace and joy as possible with the least amount of suffering is to find self-acceptance. Self-acceptance is the first step. Well, maybe first step is not the right phrasing, because it's definitely a journey and it definitely is not linear. I think it's more that self-acceptance in so many ways should be the priority or the focus or just something we put our energy into achieving. And I think anyone can get there. I don't think that self-acceptance is this elusive gift only granted to a few queer people. I think all of us can get there. And that's why I live my life the way I do. That's why I focus my career in the way that I do. That's why I have this podcast. While the outside world can help or hinder this part of our journeys, self-acceptance is an inside job. It's doing the work of our own acceptance, not just of who we are, but of the world around us, the reality of our society, and the reality of the people in our lives and our own personal journeys. Self-acceptance is about unpacking your traumas and your shame and your issues and healing those things. And acceptance of ourselves is not pain-free. Acceptance of others is not pain-free. There's a lot of grieving that has to happen. And we'll talk about that in a sec, but right now I want to just talk to you about you. When we have some internalized homophobia and deep down we feel some shame about who we are, when someone else does not accept us, it almost validates that shame and the guilt. And shame and guilt are some of the most powerful emotions. So be gentle with yourself during this process. Self-acceptance and self-love are often not things that happen magically, but things that are part of a daily practice. I read this quote today. Some days you might move mountains. Some days it might just hurt to breathe. Both days you are enough. Whew. Yeah. Every day you are enough. Regardless of where you are in your journey or like which days are better or not. But yeah, the self-acceptance, get it together, Evelina, Jesus. There's lots of unpacking, lots of processing, lots of journaling, lots of grieving. And yeah, grieving, like some of us might have to grieve the lives and identities that we thought we were going to have. Like maybe you don't want to be special in the way that we are. Like I'm kidding, even though I do feel like personally being gay is extra special and makes me feel so great. It's literally my favorite thing about myself is that I am a lesbian. But being quote unquote different may not have been something that you wanted or that you want now. Maybe you want the white picket fence, the church wedding, the husband, the kids, the wife life. But I'm telling you, you can still live your dreams. It just might be the wife life, You don't have to hate where your life is taking you just because it's not what you imagined. And while there are some downsides to being gay, yes, like our dating pool is very, very small. And like we have to kind of face the fact that 6 degrees of separation are actually more like 2 degrees, 3 max if you're long distance. But realizing you're queer is not a death sentence to a beautiful life and a beautiful future. Remember that. And honestly, what I've heard from straight women about their husbands is that we're all kind of missing out on the fantasy life that we had all dreamed on. So, it's the grass is not greener over there, is word on the street. But yeah, for real, there will probably be things that you will need to grieve, and some things might come up like over time. Like, damn, this is going to be harder or more different than I thought it was going to be. And I didn't anticipate that. Like heartache with women, most painful thing you'll ever experience. But the more you can lean into loving yourself regardless, the easier the grieving process will be because you'll have given yourself that grace. Does that make sense? Another way to find self-acceptance, ironically, is to surround yourself with queer community, with queer culture, with queer movies and art and music and media and queer events. I asked a question on Instagram about this kind of thing, about like self-acceptance, and so many people responded with the fact that surrounding themselves with queer culture and queer community was instrumental in helping them, feel better about who they are. And this is just so huge. I cannot imagine where I would be if I had not found my community as quickly as I did. And I'm lucky enough because I live in a bigger city, and so I was able to find gay people in real life a little easier. But now it's also so much easier to find queer culture in other places too, like music. Everyone is so queer in music these days, and I love that we're having like a lesbian and queer girl pop explosion with Billy and Chapel and Renee. Social media as well is a treasure trove of gay goodness, like Tumblr, and of course TikTok is gay as fuck. And so is Instagram if you're looking in the right places. And there are more queer artists out there in general, not just like music artists. There's painters and graphic designers and podcasts like this one. Like there's so much queer culture out there. And more people are doing this too, by which I mean surrounding themselves with queer culture and finding more authenticity in themselves, which means that more and more people are finding the space to realize that they are also in fact queer. And a lot more people are coming out. And then we also have a lot more spaces for queer people like Girl the Party and all the other events that I produce, because I really try hard to give y'all as many events in as many cities as possible to find your next ex-girlfriend. But for real, there are definitely more events out there where you can meet other queer people. You can see them living their best lives and living out loud. So it's getting even easier to find gay people in real life too, not just online. And the more you're able to like immerse yourself in queer culture and just like see it, the more you're able to accept that you yourself are queer and to find people who accept you wholeheartedly as you are. I mean, it's such a game changer. It's huge to be seen and understood in that way, to see yourself reflected back, to have that representation. Like, I mean, I see it all the time at my shows. Like when people are like, wait, you're gay? I'm like, fuck yeah, I'm gay. And they're like, I'm gay. And it's like, I know. And it's like really wonderful. And I think the more you surround yourself with people and community who love you for who you are, the easier it is to figure out that the people in your life who don't accept you are not people that you necessarily want or need to keep in your life. The people in your life who make you feel like you need to dim yourself, to stay in the closet, to change, to feel shame. Not to say that your entire support system needs to be queer, or that everyone in your life needs to know the Chapel Row and Hot to Go dance, or that you only need people in your life who think and believe exactly as you do. I'm not saying that at all. I think diversity is good. I think having people in your life who challenge you, make you think, show you different avenues, all of that can be a good thing. But if someone is triggering your shame, or making you feel guilty or uncomfortable for being queer, or making you feel like you need to dress differently, be less mask, or be less this, or less that, or whatever, or they refuse to use the correct pronouns, or to respect your partner, or they keep insisting on calling your girlfriend your friend, and the list goes on. That is where we need to make some choices, set some boundaries, and get ready to navigate some potentially painful decisions. I'm looking around at all my plants. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see just a few. And if you follow me on social media, you know that I've brought the outside inside into like my cozy jungle home. But I know that if one of my plants is not doing well, I change its environment, its soil, its light, where it's situated in my home, its pot, whatever. I don't tell the plant to be different and expect it to flourish. And I feel like this is the same for us. We cannot flourish if we keep ourselves in environments that aren't right, healthy, or safe for us. Okay, so there are a lot of ways that these things can manifest in your relationships. Not feeling accepted can range from the full-on extreme homophobia to microaggressions. And when I say microaggressions, for me that can mean a lot of things, and it's going to probably mean some different things to you. But some microaggressions that come to mind for me are people who say that they support you, and yet they vote for politicians who actively work to take away our rights. Microaggressions like your parents not wanting their friends to know that you're queer. Like they accept you, all that, but they feel ashamed admitting that you're gay to their friends. Another microaggression is not using the correct pronouns, or like continuing to buy you feminine clothing when you're mask presenting. You know, and like I said, some of these things might be way more than microaggressions for you, but you get what I'm saying. It's not black and white, and it's not always these hugely massive things. It's not always getting kicked out of your house or something extreme like that. Sometimes it's a lot of these other things that are little cuts to the tree with an axe, you know? And eventually those little things can cut the tree down. You know, some things you might be okay with letting go, like whatever, like, okay, my mom got me another like frilly hat, whatever. She doesn't understand my style. You know, some battles you might be okay winning or losing, so to speak. But some things might actually hurt your soul and be those axe cuts to your tree of you. I can have grace for certain things. For example, like your parents are trying to get your pronouns right, but they slip up more often than not, you know, but they keep trying. Like I get that. And I can have grace for that as well. Sometimes these things happen because they truly just don't understand. So sometimes it is worth giving the people in your life the benefit of the doubt a little bit. You know, at the start of this episode, I did talk about not expecting perfection from people and not expecting people to be exactly how you want them to be. But it's up to you to decide how much is too much. When is enough enough? When does the tree come down? And you get to decide how you want to interact with these people in your life. As hard as it might be, you have a right to choose a better life for yourself, a better support system, a better environment. I do think something that is powerful and critical to this entire journey is to be able to speak up about these kinds of things. Like, hey, I'd really appreciate it if you would stop referring to my girlfriend as my friend. I know it's hard for you that I'm dating a woman, but I am, and she is my partner. She's my girlfriend. And it would be a measure of your love and respect for me and your support if you would respect that. You know, I mean, there are a million ways that these conversations can go, right? But I highly encourage you to communicate with the people in your life. This is how boundaries work. You have to clarify for yourself what you need, then communicate that to the other people. You can't expect people to be mind readers or to just magically know what non-binary means or to know where you draw the line for yourself. These conversations can be scary as fuck. But when it comes to navigating these relationships in your life, they are absolutely necessary. Sometimes you also have to do the labor of explaining things to people. And I know that's annoying, but again, your parents and people in your life might not know or understand what non-binary means or what trans means or what you mean when you say that you're bisexual. But anyway, after these conversations, personally, I feel like as long as the people in your life are trying, even if they don't get it perfectly right every time, I think that's a good benchmark for success. But again, it's up to you to decide what is okay for you, which battles you're okay winning and losing, and when enough is enough. It can be exhausting and painful. And for me, I would rather you be surrounded by people who make you feel comfortable, not weird or uncomfortable or upset all the time. And if you do find out for yourself that enough is enough, you've had the conversations, you've set your boundaries, and you've found that someone in your life is still making things difficult, you're still feeling sad and drained because of them, or even you just don't like the way you are when you're around them, going no contact is an option. Going no contact is super painful, but sometimes it is the only thing that saves you. So many queer people have to go no contact with people in their lives. I also asked a similar question on Instagram, and I swear to God, 95% of the responses were that people eventually had to go no contact with someone in their life when they were trying to navigate relationships with people who didn't accept them. But I'll also say that the majority of those responses, people said that while yes, it was really painful, it was the best decision that they've ever made for themselves. One of my besties, Maya, had to go no contact with her mother. And she and I have had lots of discussions about this, right? Like over time. Something that I found interesting was that Maya did not just have to deal with going no contact with her mother. She had to deal with and still continues to deal with something called triangulation, where other people in her family who she's still in contact with attempt to make her feel guilty about going no contact with her mother. Like they'll send her messages like, you only have one mother and she's getting older, as if that means that Maya should put up with mistreatment, right? Or even like, oh, mom is old school. Like she doesn't understand. She doesn't get the trans thing, but Maya came out as trans like over a decade ago, and she gave her mother 10 years to get used to the idea, to understand it, to respect Maya and her pronouns. And unfortunately, enough became enough with Maya and her mother. And Maya made the very, very difficult, heartbreaking decision to go no contact with her mother. And yet it helped her stop suffering so much because of her mother. But I brought up the triangulation thing because I think this happens more often than we think when we go no contact with family, and I don't think enough people are prepared for that or expecting it. My brother, God bless him, thinks that I should come out to my dad's side of the family because, as he put it, like, I have a really cool life. I'm literally so wholesome and awesome. And he thinks that I should just own it. And like, how could they not think it's great? Which is really sweet of him to think that I'm just the coolest and that the rest of the family should think I'm cool too. But like, he's a cisgender straight white guy. So he like literally doesn't have context and could not possibly understand. I love him to death, but he's an idiot sometimes when it comes to stuff like this and the nuances of life. So even things like triangulation have spectrums. Like with my brother, I'm like, oh, you silly goose, like shut up, I'm not coming out to them. While Maya's triangulation is actually very stressful and painful. And when you go no contact, you have to grieve them just like they will probably have to grieve you. Have understanding and empathy for that, but not at the expense of yourself. You don't go no contact and then always feel relieved and happy about it, even though you will probably feel relief in many ways over time and possibly even immediately. But nearly every single person I've talked to and every single person who responded to my question about going no contact has said that it was the right choice, and as hard as it was, they're happy they did it. But again, it's like, ugh, God, again, we have to be the strong ones. We have to like dig deep and find the strength to create a better, happier, safer life for ourselves. Like, so freaking annoying. For those of you who don't know, I'm also a wedding officiant, and I have officiated more weddings than I would like to say that have had family members or friends not be a part of the wedding and not attend the wedding. One couple's best friend and maid of honor the day before the wedding said that I can't be a part of a lesbian wedding and dipped. Like, how heartbreaking. But other people stepped up. Other people walked the brides down the aisle. Other people helped floof out the dress. Other people helped these brides feel loved and accepted. And other people will step up for you too. Find your community, lean into them, stand up for yourself. This is your life to live, your heart to heal, and your right to require respect and human decency from the people you allow in your life. And just because someone had unprotected sex and popped you out 9 months later does not mean that they are in fact someone who deserves to be in your life. Family and friends can frustrate you, they can show up imperfectly, they can drive you crazy, but if they are hurting your mental health, it's time for boundaries, conversations, and choices. Okay, my sweet angel babies, I hope whatever you're going through right now, you make the best choices for you. And you know that you have a big, loving community in real life and online that knows what it's like to go no contact, that knows what it's like to deal with these things, that see you and love you and will step up for you. Those brides, and there have been several weddings like this, their weddings were still so beautiful and so filled with love and so romantic and just stunning. Even if they were missing certain people, they wish they could be there, but they didn't stop their wedding. They didn't say, okay, we won't get married, we'll end our relationship. No, they're living happily ever after. And those people are missing out on getting to see that. They're missing out on being a part of that beautiful life. And that's on them. Also, some of those people have told me that the family members did come around later on. There's always space to heal even if it takes some time. Okay. Thank you all so much for listening. I hope you feel better after listening to this episode. And it means the world to me that you do listen to these episodes like you have no idea. So give this podcast a thumbs up if you're watching it on YouTube, and leave a nice review on like Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And if you want to leave a bad review, just don't go no contact with me. Okay, thanks so much. And don't forget to follow me on Instagram and TikTok, because both of those platforms really hate my booty cheeks. And every time I post them, they censor me and they shadow ban me. The haters. It's the microaggressions I'm talking about. Like, ugh, just because my booty cheeks are plump. Get out of here with that. Anyway, it's really frustrating. That's a whole other topic for a whole other day. So I have to head to a gig right now. I'm running a little bit late because I wanted to sit here and chat with you guys, and this was my only day to do it. Also, if you're listening on Wednesday the 15th, please, for the love of God, get your tickets and come to our show tonight in Orlando, our circus show, and our Tampa show tomorrow. Have a beautiful day. Have a beautiful night. Whatever you're up to, I hope you are doing it out loud and proud. Be good to yourselves, be good to each other, and I will see you in the next episode. I love you so much. Okay, bye.